Welcome to Intentional Divorce Insights. I'm Leah Hadley, certified divorce financial analyst, accredited financial counselor, and the founder of Intentional Divorce Solutions. I'll be your guide through the complexities of divorce, finance, and emotional wellness. Join me as we uncover practical tips and empowering insights to help you navigate your divorce with clarity and intention.
Hi, and welcome back to Intentional Divorce Insights. I'm thrilled to welcome our guest today who is committed to a good divorce, and we're going to find out what that means in just a minute. Let me introduce you. This is Karen McNenny. She is a leading voice in the ever-growing field of human behavior and relationship coaching. She is a certified divorce coach. She's a mediator. Wait till you hear all these credentials. She's a co-parenting specialist. She is a crucial conversations trainer, which I'm curious, what is that, Karen?
Yeah, Crucial Conversations is a model of, having the hard conversations. It comes from Crucial Learning. They've been around for decades, and it's a 12-hour training program that I've done a lot, not only with my divorcing clients, but also with my corporate clients, where I spend time helping humans get along with other humans a little bit better.
Fantastic. She is also a gracious space facilitator and the live global radio host of The Good Divorce Show. So she brings over 25 years of professional experience and has supported a wide variety of groups in their efforts to improve workplace culture, employee engagement, and leadership excellence. Through her signature Good Divorce experience, Karen works with couples to learn not just how to get divorced, but how to be divorced. And that is definitely the missing piece for a lot of people. Her coaching program covers fundamentals such as financials and budgeting, child-centered decision-making, custody and transition planning, and navigating your new relationship with your former spouse. So I am so thrilled to have Karen here with all of her expertise. Thank you for joining us, Karen.
Happy to be here, Leah. Thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about what brought you into this work?
Well, like many of us, not all of us, but many of us, I am a divorce survivor. And I really use that word survivor in earnest. It is a hard journey. It's not anything that we set out to do. I have now been divorced 12 and a half years. My kiddos were 5 and 7 at the time. And Michael and I, my father of my children, we knew that the marriage was coming to an end, but the relationship doesn't come to an end. We have a forever relationship. We're raising children together. And then hopefully we're sharing grandbabies and graduations and weddings and all the other thresholds that come along with being family. And I know at the time of my own divorce, I looked around and I thought, I don't want to be enemies with this person. I don't want to make life difficult for my children. I don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars to do this little legal act. And there was no one to guide us. And I remember specifically, we were in marital counseling at the time, as many couples are, trying to save the marriage, wondering if we were in or if we were out. And then it becomes clear that, this marriage is complete and we're done. And then our marriage counselor kind of graduates us and dismisses us. And there was no one there to guide us how to talk to our kids, how to reestablish our own communication patterns, how we were going to renovate the relationship of our marriage into a divorced relationship, and how we could still maintain and hold on to this idea of one family that lives across 2 homes. So in many ways, I built the business that I wanted to have for myself when I went through my own divorce.
Oh, that is so beautiful and inspiring to hear that as well. Now, I know that you've seen some pretty great outcomes with some of your clients. Tell us a little bit about how you're able to achieve those outcomes.
Yeah, I think that one of the primary hallmarks of the good divorce experience in the work that I do as a coach is that I actually work with both parents. Mm-hmm. A lot of coaches, a lot of lawyers, even financial advisors, sometimes you're working with one member of that dyad, which means you're always going to, in my language, it's the feeling of we're sitting in one movie theater watching 2 different movies.
Right.
And what we want to do is unify. So just like the intentional divorce experience that you bring to people, there are a lot of us who don't want to lawyer up and fight and litigate. We just
Right.
want an intentional, thoughtful experience. So step one, two people who come to me together and say, will you help us collectively? And that already is a best practice for getting a better outcome. Then I work with a couple not only in the getting divorced at some point we're going to call a lawyer and they're going to write up our legal documents, but prior to that we're talking about the real estate, the family home, the assets, the kids, the galaxy of people around the family, which are the grandparents, the aunts and uncles, the other friends in your circle who might be stirring the pot and creating negativity around your divorce experience. So I'll work with my clients about how to talk with them, how to create healthy boundaries. And we really are leaning into this thought of we're going to renovate your relationship, particularly if you're still raising children, if you've got children in the story. And I work with couples that don't have children, and it's a little more one and done, and you can go on your merry way, which doesn't necessarily mean it's without pain and challenges.
Right.
But when I can take a couple, and generally I work with them individually, 1 week I'll have one-on-one sessions with them to really do the deep listening of where their fears are, their challenges, as they think about a solo life ahead of them. And also it gives them the space to say, they're still doing this thing that drives me crazy. And they want to write the nasty gram. And I let them kind of spew all that out on me because it needs to get out.
Mhm.
But I'm not going to spew it on your soon to be ex. We're not going to spew it on your kids. And I'm actually going to help you to release that so you don't carry it with you for the next 10 months, 10 years, and beyond. Because holding on to that pain and bitter feelings and resentment really is just like you taking the poison and hoping they die.
Mhm.
You're carrying something around that isn't going to serve you. So we look at the before, during, and after effects of the divorce so that you can get into your life rather than staying stuck in the divorce story.
Such powerful work that you're doing. And, I think it's so great when couples are able to work with one neutral party. It just seems to be a very productive way to be able to move forward and to have communication be clear and open and transparent. So I love that you're doing that. Now, I'm sure you see some common mistakes that people make when they are on their divorce journey. Can you tell us a little bit about what you see?
Yes, I think the most common one we hear about, and I'm sure a lot of your guests discuss, is when we put our children in the center or in the middle, and what that looks like. Let me paint a couple pictures for you because people are like, oh, of course I'm not going to put my kids in the middle. We love our kids, and I know one. Great pioneer in this work always says that you need to love your children more than you hate your former spouse. And when you keep that in the forefront of your mind, that's Christina McGee, a shout out to one of the great pioneers. We need to love our children more than we hate our former spouse. But it's these little subtle things. So, for instance, it might be me turning to my kids and saying, so I think I saw dad in the grocery store the other day and he was with some tall, leggy, blonde gal. What's her name? Do you know anything about her? It seems innocent enough, but I'm now putting my child in the position of reporter, or even worse, like the spy, and then the bridge between the parents. And I remember my own moment where I did ask one of my children something about dad that seemed very innocuous, like, oh, is he leaving on Saturday or Sunday for his business trip? And she turned to me. It was my Sophia, and she said, sounds like a good question for you to ask dad. And that's part of
her.
I know, really. And how we trained our children to let them know you can call us out, right? These are the things that we're trying to do or not do. I think another mistake is that parents don't actually talk about the experience of divorce with their kids. That we try to act like it's not happening, or that we're all just, kids are resilient, let's get on with it. So another best practice would be to just use this phrase, every few weeks or once a month. Again, you have to know your kids and what's going to be important for them and how they're responding. But it literally is just saying, so how's life in two houses going? Nice, broad, open. And then some follow-up questions might be, do you have everything that you need? Is there something different that Dad and I could do for you? Is there something that's really working? What are you liking about living in two houses? And I think that's a big one, that all of us in the divorce story, we have this kind of guilt and sense that there should be no pleasure post-divorce. The kids shouldn't be happy. The parents should be happy. We've done this terrible thing. We've ripped our families apart. We're failures. That narrative doesn't serve anyone. And, my kids, they'll even say when it's transition time, like, oh, thank goodness I'm going to Dad's house. I've kind of had enough of you for a couple of weeks. Or that they get really individual. I've heard this from other children. Like, maybe there was kind of an absent parent when we were all living in the same house. But now when I'm in a house with one parent, they've done the grocery shopping, they went on their trips, they've had time out with their friends. And when the kids come back home to that singular parent, it is so focused. And they get now a really equal, deep relationship with both parents. If we do it well, that's what we're going for. And asking them what's working and not working. Like, I really want my bike at this house. We had a shakeup in our household where we were always alternating, weeks, and then we're alternating holidays, trying to keep everything just balanced, just so. And sometimes it's the parents who lock into that custody schedule. And that they don't provide any flexibility to each other, and therefore they're not providing any flexibility to the children. Right. And once our kids were old enough, and Santa Claus, spoiler alert, they leaned in and said, do we have to keep doing the same tradition that we've always done? Because we really love Thanksgiving with Dad's family. Like, that's their big holiday. And everyone gathers, and there's music making, and there's singing, and there's ritual, and there's food. And it's a beautiful way that they celebrate. And Christmas is really big on my side of the family. And they're like, can we just always do Thanksgiving with Dad and always do Christmas with you, Mom? And then parents, we went behind the scenes, right? Off stage, not on stage with the kids. And we had an informed conversation about that. And we're like, well, I'm fine with that. Are you fine with that? And yeah, somewhere out there, there's a document called our parenting plan that says something different. I will remind all of your listeners, Leah, your parenting plan, the best parenting plan is 1, the kids don't know about it, and 2, you never have to refer to it. Because ultimately, you're just parenting in the organic way that you did even when you were under one roof. Are you picking up John today? I've got the baseball team covered. We got to divide and conquer. I'm going to be out of town. Oh, a work thing came up. Oh, we've got family coming into town. Could I have the kids over the weekend so that we can all celebrate with those aunties and uncles? And we flex and we move. And that is when I see best practice, is when the parents still accommodate each other. And in doing so, they accommodate the children rather than this rigidity. I recently had my daughter as a guest. She asked to be a guest on my podcast, The Good Divorce Show.
Really?
18, adult, off to college, finally living in one place. She had lived across 2 homes in 12 years. She says, I got some things to say, Mom. I said, I probably do. And there was a point in that interview when I referenced our parenting plan. And she said, whoa, wait a minute. There's a parenting plan? You don't make a plan? I'm like, oh yeah. And you'd be astonished what's on it and how it's lined out. She never knew that there was a parenting plan. And that was such a gift to her father and I to know that we had gotten that part right. And parents, I think another, asking where do we get it right? Where do we get it wrong? Is this idea that, I come from a theater background originally in my training moons ago, but there's on stage and off stage. And there's things that happen backstage that you never want your audience to see or hear.
Right.
Well, our children are our audience, even our community, and how we speak about our former spouse, how we speak about our experience of divorce publicly. So backstage, off stage is an important place for those conversations to happen that don't need to involve other people to add drama to it, or for our children to feel burdened at trying to make it better for their parents. That is not their responsibility.
Right. Absolutely not. Yeah. So many good practices there, Karen. Now, I know you've talked about what you see divorce first as a family matter and not a legal one in the past. Talk to us a little bit about why you see it that way.
Yes. And you and I have talked about this, Leah. As soon as people recognize, oh, we're going to get divorced, they think first thing I got to call a lawyer, right? Like, I got to move in and get a lawyer. And part of that is because not only the social norms, but I would also say media, what we see in films, TV, as well as the front page of People magazine, right? We all put a lot of drama and legal emphasis on divorce. And absolutely, there is a legal component. The irony is that I could go get married tomorrow, and in the course of an hour, I would have the paperwork, I could sign it, I could submit it to the court, and I'd be married. Getting divorced is very complicated. And I think a lot of people underestimate sort of what that union is from a legal standpoint and how complicated it is to unwind that. Now, because I'm trained as a therapist, a divorce coach, a co-parenting specialist, and a mediator, I'm kind of a one-stop shop for my clients. And then we call the lawyer once a lot of decisions have been made, because we're talking about family homes, selling real estate. We're talking about that first move into two homes and being really intentional about the schedule. We're talking about the conversation that's going to happen with children and family members and school teachers, that a divorce is going to take place. In many ways, I become project manager, communications director, and risk management. Do no more harm. And we build out those conversations, moving from one-on-one to then together, the three of us, so that mediation is happening gradually and over time. And when we know we've got triggers that might send somebody off into conflict, we can back off of it and say, you know what? Let's just sit on this until next week, and we're going to come back to it. And I don't like to draw things out. I think sometimes when you're working with a lawyer, you don't always get access to them. They're ping-ponging back and forth. Lawyers are talking, and the people that it actually affects aren't in the room having the conversation.
Right.
So that's what's different about that divorce coaching that is cohesive with the couple, is that we're making decisions. We are collaborative from the word go, which doesn't mean they're always in agreement. And then I can tell a couple, let's let that simmer, that conversation about, the favorite minivan of the family and who's going to end up with it. And then I can go back and talk to each of them individually and find out, oh, dad just wants the minivan because mom loves it. And mom wants the minivan because she's the one who does most of the carpooling. So I can talk to dad and help him see his blind spot and to realize, is there something else? Like, do you want to be right, or do you want to make this right? I'm going to help you make it right for your kids. Do you want to become the minivan dad who's doing all? No, I don't want the minivan. I don't want to. I'm not even available. I'm the one running, the business and keeping everybody funded. I don't have time to do the carpool. I'm like, okay, then what are you fighting for?
Right.
You're fighting for something. It's not actually the minivan. So when that conversation can happen progressively, then we come back and we realize mom's going to keep the minivan. Then we just go tell the lawyer, here's the list of assets. Minivan goes to mom. Rather than two lawyers who are trained to battle for everything that you want and to get you the most. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right thing or that
That's
it's
right.
beneficial for the family.
Yeah, so many important points that you made there, Karen, about really focusing on the family and helping them to achieve results that are in all of their best interests, rather than really creating that dynamic of tension and adversity and all of that. That when you do focus on it as just a legal practice, we often see it becoming contentious when it just isn't necessary.
It's not necessary. And knowing the team that we need, and lawyers are one piece of it. Your
Right.
team, Leah, become a really important piece, looking at not only the financials as we're unraveling them, but now what do we do with these buckets of money after the fact? How do I become a single income household with stability? How do I invest that money so that it's working for me as I'm recuperating financially? Because it is a awakening when you go from a 2-income household to a single income household, or maybe you were only a single income household, but you're the partner who's never managed the money.
Right.
You need to work through that. And again, I am in honor and respect of our legal community that supports families, but you probably need a financial advisor. You might need a coach, a co-parenting specialist, a real estate agent, a life coach, as you maybe are reinventing and you were working part-time or not at all while you were raising kids, and now you need to go back to work. And where is that pathway? So there's lots of people who come together that make the divorce experience beyond an act of a legal document. That's just a thing we have to do. And lawyers are not equipped typically, not trained to dive into those things. And most of the time they don't want anything to do with it, which is why I get calls from lawyers like, Karen, I've got clients who need your support. We need to be in partnership to help them, so that we can help them do the right thing, not just walk away and feel like they won.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good point.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. So few people realize that having a team of professionals to really support you can actually be a lot less expensive than just working through attorneys.
This is such a paradigm shift, like, oh, I'm going to work with a coach every week for months, and then I'm going to have this real estate person and a financial person. But the reality is that we're going to abbreviate your process. I don't like people sitting in the messy middle of divorce.
Right.
More harm can be done. More ideas start to pop. Let's get you in and out and on to the next thing. I think of it like this little storm cloud that follows you around. And when there's a storm cloud, you don't know when the lightning's going to strike. You don't know when the thunder's going to roar. So we want to move that storm cloud out. And, in my case, speaking about money and the anxiety around money and getting divorced, and, lawyers come with their training. They often have a big firm with a lot of overhead. They're charging the fees that they need to fee. And honestly, there's some who believe if I can create a contentious, litigious experience, then I'm going to have that client for a longer stretch of time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my goal ever. It is to get you in and out, to such a degree that sometimes I work hourly, but for the most part, I've now shifted to there's a monthly flat fee. So you know what it's going to be. And if it's a Saturday night panic attack, oh, I wish I knew how to take care of this thing, but if I email my lawyer, it's going to be $52 for every 2 sentences, and then there's going to be $10 for a Xerox, and then a paralegal fee, and ching, ching, and it's just this meter that's running all the time. So people, either they run out of funds before they're done, and then they start with a big debt, or they're going to friends and family to pay for their divorce experience, or they don't ask the questions when they come up, or they don't get the support that they need to take care of those high conflict moments. So my clients know what that flat fee is, depending on kind of the scope of work, if you will. And then they know that at least twice a month, they're each going to meet with me one-on-one. And at least twice a month, I'm going to meet with both of them as a couple. And then if I think something is kind of a hot spot and it needs to get addressed sooner than later, I am the first to call them up and say, hey, we need to huddle up.
Mm-hmm.
And They don't see me as just generating more billable hours.
Right.
It's me working towards best practice and best outcome. And then they can email, they can send a text. A lot of time I do ghostwriting for my clients, the email that you wrote, and you can hear your fingers on and your jaw is tight. And I'm like, do not send it. Write it, send it to me. We'll talk about it. Again, you can spew all of those big feelings, be witnessed in it, get it out. And then we're going to go back and take that 10-page email that you just wrote and turn it into 10 sentences that actually matter and that need to go to your former spouse. And we learn, right? That's it. We're learning how to be a divorced family.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the communication that we get sent? What's essential? How do we pull back on the emotional? Who can we trust in our inner circle to work with? How do we forecast the changes that are going to happen? Because I certainly know in my story, when we had a 5 and a 7-year-old, there was a lot of communication all the time because they're little.
Right.
And then, I have to get back into a deep conversation with my spouse because now we have teenagers. And there's a different set of rules. And do those go across both homes and our expectations around curfew and homework and grades? Oh, and now they want a driver's license.
Right.
Are we in agreement about them getting the driver's license? Oh, and now they're going to have a car. How are we as parents going to pay for the insurance and the upkeep and the snow tires and the gas? And what responsibility is the kids and what responsibility is ours? So we're in negotiations again, even though we were divorced 8 years ago.
Right.
Oh, and now those same kids are going to college. We have to fill out a FAFSA form. We have to bring all of those financials back onto the table and talk again. Meanwhile, our kids are rejecting us. And some people blame that on the other parent. Going through adolescence is a whole nother thing. Like, hey, our son, our daughter's getting really feisty and really disrespectful. What are you telling? And I'm like, that's not me. I'm getting we're all getting it.
Right.
At which point parents maybe start to become rejoined against the common enemy of the teenager. And then those same children are going to go off potentially and repartner and marry and get homes. And wouldn't it be great if our children never had to think about, can mom and dad both come to Christmas? Oh, we've got a wedding coming up. They have to sit on opposite sides of, don't do that to your children. You can be unified. And I remind everyone and your listeners today, Leah, there was a love story. There is a love story between you that brought you together. And if in many instances created children and a family. And just because that marriage is complete and you're moving through a divorce process doesn't mean you have to disregard every beautiful memory and the celebration of that companionship. You can still hold on to that and do not let society tell you you have to flush all the good stuff. It's actually really worthwhile to hold on to the good stuff.
Absolutely, especially when you're trying to parent together, for sure.
Yeah.
So, Karen, you have some special support groups going on this month. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, I am offering the Good Divorce Support Group every Friday afternoon across all the time zones. And you can pop in. You can find out more information at thegooddivorcecoach.com or KarenMcNenny.com or my Facebook or Instagram, The Good Divorce. People usually can't spell my last name, but they'll remember Good Divorce because we don't usually put those two words together in a sentence.
Right.
The support group is free for individuals to come and, get a sense of what divorce coaching is, to talk with perhaps some other individuals who are maybe in the early stages of thinking about divorce or just talking with their spouse. Maybe they're in the thick of it and they're working on their decree and their settlement agreements, or maybe they're post-divorce and they're negotiating some of these parenting challenges. So before, during, after, I touch on all of those pieces of the divorce experience. And you can sign up right online and join me there. It's a great opportunity to meet with me and hear a little bit more about my process. But also, anyone who's curious about working with me, I offer a 1 hour free consultation. I know most people are like, a full hour every. And if the couple can't get on the phone with me together, I'll talk with each of them individually. This is such an important decision about how you're going to navigate your divorce. And we go out and we just Google and we pick, and there's a lawyer's name. And I really think that the selection process through divorce in the team that supports you should be at least as devoted as the selection process for new shoes.
Right.
You're going to try on a couple pairs. Is this the right size? Maybe I should walk around in it. I want to make sure it's a good fit. And that's all I ever encourage people to do, is find the right fit. And I may not be the right fit for you, but I'm going to spend an hour with you so that we can find out. And honestly, you might not be the right fit for me. And like you, Leah, there is a niche group of individuals out there in the world who want to have an intentional divorce, who want to do it with compassion and kindness for their former spouse and their children, who ultimately want a good outcome, not an explosion that blows up their whole life. We're the sorts of people who want to support you in that process. It can be done.
Yes, it can be done. Absolutely. Karen, I so appreciate you being with us today and sharing so much wisdom and strategies. And this was just super helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and wishing you and your clients all the best in their journey.
Thank you for joining me on Intentional Divorce Insights. It's a privilege to share this time with you. I hope each episode offers valuable guidance to navigate your journey. If you find our content helpful, please leave a review to help others discover the benefits of intentional decision-making in divorce. Until next time, take care and continue to embrace your path with intention.